Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Sean from ACET Education. Today we're going to learn speaking, and on this channel we have had multiple speaking sessions. We have had sample speaking answers for both IELTS and CELPIP and a lot of daily situations as well. So if you haven't checked out those videos, check them out. What we're going to do today is we're going to break it down, assuming this is your very first class, very first YouTube video that you're watching of me, and you're trying to learn speaking, or you have seen my speaking videos before, the samples, and they were just too tough. You know, you maybe have the templates as well, but it's too tough. And you want to understand how to really start speaking. What is the first word, first sentence you have to use, then the second sentence, then the third sentence, and so on. So we'll build sentences today by making it very simple. And even if you're an advanced user, you would know the structure pretty much broken down into pieces that you can apply anytime when you speak. So today's lesson is very important. First, we're going to break it down into the steps you need to make a good sentence, and then you can make multiple sentences with those steps. So the whole point is to go step by step. Then towards the end of this video, we're going to work on making such beautiful sentences even more beautiful and appealing. And you'll see exactly what I mean, so stick till the end. Let's get started. There are two types of, I don't want to say three, not moderate. There are just two types of speakers that I would mostly classify people in. One are the basic speakers, the other are the advanced speakers, obviously. So I'm going to start with basic speakers. And if you're advanced, just forward a few minutes, you'll get to where we want to be at. So we're going to start with a question. For example, let's talk about not an IELTS question, not a CELPIP question, just a daily life question. Okay. So in daily life, people would talk about, especially in Canada, about the weather. So what do you think of the weather right now? Someone asks you, and it's freezing outside. It is snowy. What's new, right? So I'm a basic speaker. I want to build my sentence into 3 steps. So what are those 3 steps, guys? Step number 1 is to give an intro. Step 2 would be to explain. And step 3 would be to give examples. All right, so the question which is being asked to a basic speaker, and let me write down basic here so we know we're talking about the 3 steps used for basic speakers. The question that is that's being asked is, what do you think about the weather today? All right, so I'm going to start by something very simple. The weather. Just my first thought that comes into mind. Sorry. Actually, I got this wrong. Okay. Weather. The weather is pretty cold. Simple. Okay. We want to start with something very simple. The first thing that comes in your mind. You don't want to think about fancy words, fancy vocabulary right now, fancy expressions right now. As you say the first sentence, it should be very easy to say because it's a psychological thing as well. When someone talks to you and you respond, there is a little bit of nervousness. It happens a lot more in job interviews, but even in normal settings, it happens. So as long as, if you're talking in your family to your mom, dad, friends, or your wife and kids, you're completely natural. You don't even care if you screw up. But anyone outside your home, you're always a little nervous, even if you don't admit it. So you want to make sure that as soon as the person finishes talking, now it's your job to shine, your job to show them how good your speaking is, or just that you're capable of having a conversation with. So right here, when you start the sentence, your nervousness is at its peak, which is why if you think of complex sentences, complexity in any way, it's going to be really hard for you to make a sentence. So keep it really simple at this point. What happens at the end of the sentence is you are more confident. You know you have said the first sentence with confidence, which was flawless because it's a very simple sentence, so it has to be flawless without any mistake. And now you're able to build on step 2. And that step 2 is simply going to be explaining it further, elaborating this idea more. So if we're talking about the topic of cold, how do we elaborate it? Maybe we can talk about how it feels on the body, or maybe we can talk about how it looks, like it looks really white because it's all snow. Or maybe we can talk about how you experienced it as soon as you got out of the door. Lots of things to say. I won't think like in what examples I would use this second step. I'm just going to think of what I would say naturally. So the weather is pretty cold. It gets annoying when it is like this. below minus 20 degrees. Okay, so now I elaborated on the cold further. Once again, I'm not using any examples. I'm just explaining my feelings more. And the easiest thing to explain is your feelings. Okay, so when you go to explanation, you can talk about feelings, emotions, and attitude, how your attitude is. You can say, I hate the cold, or maybe you love the cold. You know, I love the snow. These are the easiest things to explain. And when you explain, you go a little further than this a step. So we want to use something to guide us. Feelings, emotions, and attitudes are pretty easy for anyone to explain because that's how they feel. Now comes the hardest part, which is the example. And the hardest part is saved for the end because, again, nervousness is pretty high when you start the sentence. But you have confidence at the end of step 1. You have a lot of confidence at the end of sentence 2 because now you're building a complete story. And now that you're super relaxed, you're able to take on this step, which is examples. So what I would do in this situation when I'm talking to people is I'm going to talk to them about, myself. So what happened when I woke up this morning? I had to, this is Canadian life, guys. If you're not here, this is what you're going to probably be talking about very soon. I had to shovel mountains of snow this morning just to get my car out. And if you didn't have to shovel mountains of snow, you don't have to talk about examples of your own. You can talk about other people's examples too. You can talk about how, you know what, my aunt was walking yesterday on this sidewalk and she slipped because it was so icy. Or you can talk about, at least it's not as bad as it is in this province. Or you can talk about, at least it's better than it was last year. So what you can see is in the examples, I'm talking about my experience. I'm talking about my close ones' experiences. So people I know, like aunt, uncle, friends, or family. And I'm talking about comparison. So comparing it with other cities, other provinces, or if you're talking about any subject, maybe other companies, institutions, and comparing it with the time, like it's not as bad as it was last year. And a lot of other things. You can also relate to media. So I saw in the news that it's gonna get very chilly very soon. So this is nothing, it's gonna get worse. Lots of things to compare it with, and all of these things and more can be part of your example. So this is where you go into a very specific example. I shoveled the snow this morning in my experience. This is what happened. And the point of this is, of course, to make the conversation longer, but also make it realistic. Because when you are talking to people, you don't want to sound like a robot, right? You want to share personal experiences, and that's what makes the conversation interesting. So how I can apply this in, let's say, an IELTS question. I'll do an IELTS question, then we'll do a CELPIP question later. I already did a general day-to-day question, so let's talk about an IELTS question. So it would be, for example, do you like your IT job? I'm going to say, I do love my IT job. I think it's something that doesn't bore me and keeps me interested. Example, because as I am right now, I go to work 7 days a week, pretty much, 9 hours a day, and I've been doing this for 30 years, and I still don't feel bored. So I think it's a pretty good profession for me. So you see how in IELTS I always say make 2 points or 3 points. So this is 1 point. 1 point made from 3 sentences going from a slow speed to a higher speed and complexity. So that's what you can do when you have a basic level. You build your sentence within 3 steps. Okay, let's talk about advanced speakers. So advanced speakers can build sentences in 2 steps only. One is give an intro, same thing like before. Number 2 is basically a combination of 2 and 3. So explain your point with examples. Now, advanced speakers don't have to do sentence number 2 and sentence number 3. They can just mix sentence number 2 and 3. So let's now talk about a CELPIP question. And it's going to be a long answer. I'm just going to pick one situation, one sentence where I can explain that. So let's say you're in the part 5 and you're comparing. Okay, you're comparing whether to buy a car or go in a taxi. And you are telling this to your friend, you're suggesting what he should do. And let's say I want to pick a car. So I'm going to start with one of the sentences is going to be part 1. I really think you should go with the car. Now explain. The car is obviously going to make your life so much comfortable. Imagine waiting for a taxi or being rejected by a taxi when you call one, or being treated badly by a taxi. You avoid all of those things if you have your own car. You have independence, freedom, and autonomy. All right, so in CELPIP, you can also use these 3 steps, of course, if you're a basic speaker, or go with the 2 steps. And in the 2 steps, you're simply mixing explanation and examples together in one sentence. And that's how you guys can build steps slowly. If you think your speaking is not very good and you need guidance, or you just want to slow down and just analyze everything, you want to do these steps. Take a CELPIP answer for a minute or 1.5 minutes. Take an IELTS answer for the 2 points or the 3 points. Write those down. Write those down in these sequences, and you will understand how you can formulate your whole answer based on these steps. Okay? That's all. Mainly, what I finally will tell you is, if you get to a super advanced level, I should have said super advanced here, what you do is add more fancy vocabulary. Okay, fancy vocabulary should have, first of all, good words. So instead of pretty cold, we could say it is pretty chilly. Okay, it gets frustrating, annoying. It gets, what do you call it? There's that word. It gets, no, I think it's informal. Never mind. Below -3 is like, I had to shovel mountains of snow. Mountains of snow is already a good expression instead of just saying snow. This morning, just to get my car out, just to squeeze my car out. Maybe you didn't squeeze it, but I'm gonna say a squeeze because I want to use a fancy word. So one is the fancy words. The other is using complex vocabulary. So you could change this last sentence. Since there were mountains of snow, I had to shovel constantly to simply squeeze my car out. Okay, so what I did is I used since, and that broke the sentence into 2 parts. Since there were mountains of snow. Number 2, I had to shovel constantly to simply squeeze my car out. So if you haven't seen my lesson on complex sentences, type on YouTube, AIDS at Education complex sentences, and you'll see how to make these sentences. So now it's complex. It has good vocabulary, squeeze, mountains of snow. What you also probably noticed is I added simply and constantly. So that's a 3rd step of giving yourself a range of vocabulary. That means using adjectives, adverbs, and these are adverbs, constantly, simply. And adjectives as well. How about we say there were huge, adjective, mountains of snow. So you have adjectives, adverbs, and of course nouns and verbs come naturally. We don't have to think about those. Complex sentences and vocabulary. So this is the very, very last step. If you're super advanced, you go ahead and do that. But keep it simple. Start with the basic steps if you're basic. Start with the advanced steps if you're advanced. Once you're mastering those, go with the super advanced steps. And I hope that helps you make brilliant sentences, do a great speaking for your IELTS or CELPIP exams, or for daily life. And if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Talk to you soon, guys. Take care.